Hello and welcome back to the Brit Iron Podcast. Today we're going to give you a little run through of the news of the week. We're going to also continue on with our season preview series, where today is the number 3 team, the Kansas City Chiefs. And then we're going to follow on with a bit of Matt's fancy quickfire. And then I've got a little segment at the end where we're going to test the boys' knowledge in our weekly head-to-head series. And of course today I'm joined by Matt and Sam. How are we today, boys?
Cracking, mate. Cracking. I was actually putting together the kind of the plan for the show on the train on the way home from work, and I was kind of going through the news and looking through what we've got. I was getting really excited to just kind of chat about this. We're getting into the absolute meat of the final three, our top 3 teams. We've got some great things to chat about in the news. I'm stoked, mate.
I'm just excited to go 3 up against Sam in the head-to-head.
Oh.
Highlight of the week, that.
Of course, that was a big 2-0 for you last week, man. That was I completely forgot about that till now.
Kept it rolling.
Yeah, exactly. But anyway, we should kick it off right into the news, and the first headline of the week that we'd like to talk about is the tight end contract situation. Now, obviously, Kittle and Kelce have both signed big money deals. Big money deals. George Kittle signed a 5-year, $75 million contract with $40 million guaranteed. And Travis Kelce as well has signed a 4-year, $57.25 million contract with $28 million guaranteed. Now, obviously, Kelce with the Chiefs. Mahomes just signed a big deal as well. How on earth are the Chiefs doing this?
Right. So I've actually got a bit of a theory about this. Which I kind of broached with Matt at the weekend, and so you look at the way the NFL runs, right? And the NFL is based, and the reason that a lot of people love the NFL is it's a big storyline league. There's always it's always the next big story. Everyone likes a good story, the turnaround, the guy who came from nothing, and it's like the ultimate American dream kind of sport, isn't it? They love the stories. And for a long time, you had Tom Brady as the face of the league. And it was always the great story. Like, the league wanted Tom Brady winning. And there's always been conspiracy theories. Now, I'm not saying that I necessarily believe them, but there have always been conspiracy theories that would say that in a lot of big scenarios, the league would give decisions in the favour of Brady because it was in the league's favour to have Brady at the top, right? So you've got the tuck rule game. There was a number of there was the Deflategate thing, and a number of issues with like the Patriots potentially cheating and watching and kind of taping practices and things like that were always kind of blown over and allowed to happen. And don't get me wrong, I'm not taking away from what Brady did, but there were these conspiracies that kind of thought the league's doing something to keep them up there. Like maybe this isn't all organic. Maybe with Patrick Mahomes being the next big thing, the league, the best thing for the league is that Patrick Mahomes is the face of the franchise and the league for the next 15 years. And the best way for him to stay there is to have talent around him. Maybe the NFL has done something clever in order to help the Chiefs sort this cap out, because what they're doing, I think it was like the start of this offseason that someone worked out. At one point they had like $140 of cap space left or something. There's some thing, and then all of a sudden they spend over $500 million, sign 3 of their best players to long-term deals out of nowhere, and suddenly they're set up. I mean, I love it. I think it's going to be great. Keep these players around Mahomes. It's what we want to see. But I'd be really interested to actually know how they're doing it, because it's a bit suspect.
Yeah, I think whoever is managing that cap situation has either found a loophole or is just on a genius. It's just like working out ridiculous numbers, but it's exciting. It is what we all want to see, and fair play to him. I think for this one, I prefer the Kittle deal to the Kelce deal. I think Kittle is more important for that scheme than Kelce is. I'm not taking anything away from Kelce. He's an incredible player, but I think you could put multiple other tight ends there, and they would look at a similar, maybe not quite the same, because he is very good, but they would feast in that offense. Whereas I think Kittle does a very unique role and is more integral to what the 49ers do. But I think it makes sense. I think it was bound to happen for these two guys to get paid their deals. I mean, Zach Ertz has got 2 years left, so he's the next one talking. but a little bit different for him. Got Goddard behind him.
Yeah.
So it's a debatable one. It'll be interesting to see what happens. But if he is in talks, he's just been helped out massively by these two getting deals. And same for any tight end coming up to have these negotiations, because it's all going to scale down. Obviously, no one, I don't think, should be getting paid their money. But it's going to scale down that it just elevates the money for the whole position, I think, for the modern NFL.
Yeah, it's definitely not the benchmark, but it's definitely one of those like reaching points. If you're looking at what you want to be aiming for, then maybe. But yeah, I would say it's the benchmark. And Sam, that is a wild theory as well. You've got there that there's some conspiracy that the NFL is co-conspiring.
Well, I just think it's a league of storylines. Everyone wants to see it, and I don't even think it's a bad thing, to be honest. I mean, how disappointing would it be to see over the next 2 years, slowly Kansas City loses all of its pieces, Patrick Mahomes surrounded by nobody, and they're just perennially a divisional round team because, yes, he's great and he elevates them. I mean, there are so many quarterbacks throughout the years that were potentially transcendent and just surrounded by so little that their potential was never realised. So when you've got a guy of just probably the most talented player ever by a long shot in the league to come in, if he's got that talent around him straight away, do everything you can to keep him there, because at the end of the day, I mean, that's what fans pay to go and see, isn't it? I'd much rather pay £100 to go and watch Kansas City at Wembley than I would pay £100 to go and watch Washington at Wembley.
Yeah,
it's the sad truth. So,
yeah,
I mean, it's a wild theory, and it's probably just a theory. But if it came out to be true, I wouldn't even be that hacked off, because I want to see 10 years of Mahomes slinging the rock downfield to some of the best players in the league.
Yeah, I think I more swing towards Matt Theory of just some genius in the back room.
Yeah, just some really smart intern they brought in who's just like,
that's a lot less boring.
I mean,
someone's
obviously brilliant at Excel in the Chiefs organisation, and that's all I can put it down.
Got a Moneyball scenario going.
I was going to mention Moneyball. It could be a very similar situation in a weird sort of way. Great film. Do love that reference.
Moneyball, but with the best.
Yeah. Shout out Brad Pitt and Jonah Hill.
Yeah, great film. Great film. Anyway, we should move on to the next news piece. And
talking a great film,
sticking on the quarterback front, actually. And the fact that the Pats have come out and claimed that Cam Newton and Jarrett Stidham are co-starters and splitting reps. I mean, how long is that going to last for? How long before they come out and say that Newton is the guy?
It's straight up a lie.
I think this is more the storyline of it, I think, and the statement to the press. I think this is going to continue a long way into training camp. But I think it's not the case. I think all they're trying to do properly, it just seems like Belichick trying to really light a fire under Cam. And just be like, no, you haven't got it yet. No, you haven't quite got it yet. And keep moving the goalposts for him just to really get like a healthy, just lights out motivated Cam Newton. Because I think he's looking at it and like, obviously there's a defense there. There's a few gaps. We already mentioned it with the sit-outs. But if you can get Cam Newton and his like playing at his best, he can put a franchise on his back. And I think this is just part of that. But I think it's also as well, they've been high on Stidham seemingly this entire off-season. And there's got to be something behind that I think it might be completely wrong, completely unfounded. We don't know. We haven't seen enough to decide on him yet. But I just think maybe it's mainly storyline, mainly to motivate Cam, but also to kind of so Stidham doesn't feel like, oh, it's Cam Newton, I haven't got a chance. It's, I think, just to get them both at their best and be like, look, it's all to play for, lads. Go out there.
If nothing else, I think this is more coach speak than anything. At this point in training camp, every single year, coaches come out and they say great things about any quarterback on their roster. Oh, like we really like what we're seeing from Drew Lock, for example. We really like what we're seeing from Daniel Jones. Like, no matter what quarterback it is, where they come out and they say these things. The difference between most camps and this year's camp is most camps you've got fans there watching the practices. You've got loads of press in knocking about, so you do get kind of the hints of a lot more information coming out of, yeah, they're saying they love Stidham, but actually Cam's getting all the reps. I think some of this might just be Belichick saying, yeah, they're co-starters, so that the week 1 opponents of the Patriots can't just go, right, we got to prep for Cam. They've got to go, right, we've got to prep for 2 separate quarterbacks, and he throws this smokescreen out. I can't see a world really where Stidham starts week 1. I just can't see it. If you'd have asked me 6-7 weeks ago when they first announced Cam joining, then at that time I did think there was a world where he might have got cut for cap reasons. But now that they've got so many players sitting out of the season, they've got that cap freed up, they will take Cam whether they think he's the starter or not, and he would be the backup, at which point I think he will win that job week 1, and I think this is just a smokescreen.
I think it's not quite as cloak and dagger, though, because as much as you said, yeah, there's a lot less fans, a lot less insight into the training camp, you've still got all the sort of local press that work with the teams. They're all still in and around. Like, there's tons of videos leaking out of, like, let's say just the Bucs practices. That's more, obviously, what I see coming up on my feed. Follow a lot more of them. But that's going to be the same around the NFL.
Yeah, but
we
I'm
are
pretty
going to
sure
see quite a lot of it still. It's not going to be hidden. You can't hide, like, the rep count fully. You can't.
Yeah,
it's not going to be that easy. It's not a case of it's a smoke screen. You can't see anything.
Yeah, but what gets out is going to be much easier controlled by the teams themselves, because they get final say really over who comes into the building to an extent and what gets out. So I think it's very tricky at this point. I would be very shocked if even going into an hour before week 1, we don't still have things of, I haven't decided who the starter is, but I guarantee you that first snap, it will be Cam trotting out on the field.
Yeah, I mean, all I'll say on this is that talk is cheap, and you talk about the media being in there today. What I've read coming out today is that, yep, all 3 of them had split snaps. I think it was like 10 to 11, I think they threw each, but there was a small piece of play where Stidham had 5 passes and he threw 3 interceptions on those 5. So although they can say he's co-starting and splitting reps, what the media are seeing him doing on the field is a lot different to what they're going to say. From that basis, it won't be long for Cam Newton is clearly the guy.
Someone say Nathan Peterman.
Oh god!
But again, this is what, day 2 of in pads.
Oh yeah.
So but there's pros and cons on both sides of that.
I think everyone knows it's going to be Newton. I think, unless he gets hurt. Like,
yeah,
it just makes sense. Unless Stidham plays lights out, which 3 interceptions of 5, not quite lights out, but we'll see what happens.
Yeah, that's like Jameis level, isn't it? At this point,
Yeah. I mean, 23 days out from the first kickoff, so still
is it
a lot
that
of training
close?
days.
I cannot wait.
Oh,
buzzing,
so excited!
absolutely
dear.
Buzzing. But the next news article is one that is very near and dear to my heart in particular, and that is that Des Bryant is going to be working out in Baltimore. I believe he landed there, I should say, on Monday. So we'll have to wait and see on how he does. But would you boys make of that little workout?
I think it makes sense to bring him in. I think you've got a choice realistically. It's sort of, if you're going for an experienced older wide receiver, it seems the names that keep getting thrown about is like, would it be Antonio Brown? Would it be Des Bryant? I think Des Bryant makes a bit more sense. Antonio Brown on his day is probably better, but I think Des Bryant is a bit less risky. Because with Antonio Brown, there's a lot of off the field, there's a lot of potential disruptions. And for a team that are hoping, or no, not even hoping, that I think will be in the thick end of the season, that are a favourite, you don't really want to risk bringing anything in that could derail that. So I think if you need a bit of help, you want an experienced guy. I don't see any problem with bringing him in to work out as well. Obviously, he's got to go through all the COVID testing and everything like that first, so it could still be a couple of days before we see him and hear any stories about him. But I think it makes sense from their point of view.
I completely agree. Again, I don't really want to go into too much detail because, obviously, for those of you who haven't figured out, the Ravens are in our top 2. So I don't want to go into too much detail yet, but I think Des Bryant makes so much sense for this team as a guy you could bring him in relatively cheap. Makes way more sense in terms of what they actually need than Antonio Brown would, just because you're not bringing him in for loads and loads of work. You're bringing him to be a big, strong, aggressive red zone target, which is what they need. Just give give Jackson another weapon in the red zone. You've got everything else around the offense for between the 20s. Just give him a big, strong, reliable pass catcher inside the red zone, and I think he could work. And for the price you could pick him up for, I'm all for it.
Yeah. I mean, I'm reserving judgment for now. I question the space on the roster, in particular. I don't know who would make way. Obviously, Willie Snead, and there's a rookie as well, who would be the first names on the list. And again, without going into too much detail, I question whether that's a wise move, because one of them is a rookie, like I mentioned. But Des Bryant will be highly motivated. He's been out since November 2018, so this is his chance back in the league, which he said he's wanted since then. But on the same front, he has been out since November 2018. So how rusty is he? Tore his Achilles tendon. That's not an easy one to come back from. And arguably his best years were 2014 through 2016, 2012.
Yeah,
he's a while off.
His prime's behind him, but he's the kind of guy that I think you could get a real value, and he could come in and do a job.
Yeah, he's an old head, so he'll be off for that as well. So potentially could do a job. I just question the space. So, I'll reserve judgment for now as a Ravens fan, but looking forward to seeing how that does pan out, because there's a lot of potential there. But moving on to the fourth and final news piece for this week. Hard Knocks. Now, we mentioned this last week and how we were all buzzing to watch it. Did it live up to your expectations?
Yeah.
I
think to be honest, I don't even know why we're discussing it. I think you should just read what I put on the episode plan, and we can move on.
So that was Hard Knocks. It's sick. I think was the
quality review. That
was the run through. Which...
Obviously, I think I've only watched it once. I haven't gone back and watched it again yet for the first episode. And the one negative I would say about it is it. And I understand why they did it, but it was very, very heavily focused on the whole COVID thing, and it felt like the entire episode was just ramming the COVID. Everything's different. Look, they're all doing tests all the time. Felt like it was ramming that down your throat, which I don't mind, because I understand why they do it. I'm just kind of hoping that the next episode just gets back to football. Like, I want to see the storylines of the players, that kind of thing, like what Hard Knocks usually does. But I loved the first episode, and every year when Hard Knocks for me signals the start of the football season, and when you get that theme song rolling, I'm just sat there like, yeah, let's go.
I think it was quite interesting for me. I didn't mind the first episode having the sort of COVID focus on it, because I was looking forward to, I think we chatted about it last time, seeing how two teams are dealing with it differently. And I think there was differences. Obviously, the Rams practically building that new outdoor tented facility when everything starts to clear up, or teams adjust and it's less strict on how they have to be and all the distancing, they don't have to really worry about getting a full clean done on their normal facility. They can literally be straight in there at a moment's notice almost. So I think it's just interesting to see the differences. I think only disappointment for me was I was obviously hoping to see a lot of McVay working on the offense for Goff, and it seemed like he's more been coming up with plays for his dog with a basketball in the pool than working with Goff.
Incredible
but
plays.
Oh yeah. But I think it's just interesting to see, and I expected within Chargers they focused on Herbert instantly. Like, Taylor got a mention, I think a couple of shots. The only one we saw throwing was Herbert, and I think they pretty much only showed the good throws. So I think it's going to be interesting. I'd like to actually see from a reporter, someone who's been on the inside point of view of how good he's looking, because they're making it look like, oh, he's incredible. He's the second coming.
Just quickly on the Herbert thing, I remember watching that, and the first thing that came to mind when I saw Herbert is that, especially for his build that he had in college, he looked a lot thicker than he had done before. He looks like he's put on a bit of muscle, and that he's coming into the league in great shape physically. Like, he looks a lot more durable than he might have done when he was at Oregon, which I think's great. And I saw a couple of things there I really liked. Obviously, like you said, it's what they want you to see, because the coaches do, I believe on Hard Knocks, the coaches are allowed to cut out anything they want.
They're going to be. But I think on your point there, if he's bulked up a bit, I think we've seen that across the league. Like, now we're properly starting to see players back in the building and sort of a lot of media on them. I know just a lot of the Bucks secondary have come back, and I think they've just lived in the gym during lockdown.
AJ
I think it's the same across the league. Like
AJ Dillon's legs look like trunks at the moment. It's like Saquon or something. It's mad.
Players have just all been, I think, on a bit of a bulk, and it's going to be interesting to see how it goes. But I think it's not even like you look at them a bit overweight, that kind of. I think they're ripped, but they put on muscle. Like everyone's coming in a bit heavier. So
fair to say that they spent their lockdown in a slightly different way to how I spent mine.
Yes.
Yeah, you could definitely say that. But just back on the Hard Knocks front as well, it was interesting because the viewing figures were actually down year on year for this one, which I thought was really interesting because, like you guys, I thoroughly enjoyed it. I've watched it twice now, and there was so many interesting points in there. I, like you, Matt, as well, enjoyed how they talked about the COVID situation. And I think Anthony Lynn, the Chargers head coach, had one really good quote in there, which was, you have two opponents, you have your schedule, and you have COVID, which I think is a really good point that anything could really happen during 100%. The season. And it's just a nice little reminder that even the coaches are thinking about that as well. And the other point as well was Andrew Vollett, the tight end.
I was just about to say, the tight end who came in and was like hacked off. I love to see that from a player. I love to see that.
A bit of passion is what you need.
Yeah.
As opposed to Jalen Ramsey kicking off at news reporters, which is passion in a different front.
I can kind of understand that, though. He did turn around and say, look, I'm not dealing with that. My agent's dealing with it. And then they pressed him. He said, I'm not dealing with it. They pressed him a third time. If that was me, I'd be like, hang on, I've told you what. Like, I can kind of get that.
If I'm the Rams,
it comes badly.
If I'm the Rams, I like the way he responded to that. Maybe not the walking off, but that's what you want to hear from your player who's in a contract negotiation. My agent's there for a reason. He's dealing with it. Just get me out on the field. I'm just doing my bit. That is exactly what you want to hear, because you've seen things in the past from players where they start to, that's all they're talking about, and you can tell when they're on the field, they're not 100%. They're distracted.
And he knows.
This sounds great, I think, for the Rams.
He knows that they will come to an agreement because he knows what the Rams invested in him. The Rams can't afford to invest 2 first-round picks in him and then not pay him and keep him around for the long haul. So he knows there's a deal's going to get done. The Rams know a deal's going to get done. And I really like, as Matt said, his response of, look, my agent's dealing with it. It will get done. My focus is football. Love that. I think that bodes really well for him for having a great year.
Yeah, precisely that. And then moving on to next week, obviously very exciting. And for the Chargers in particular, Melvin Ingram potentially holding out. That could be an interesting one to see play out on next week's episode.
Yeah, it's interesting with that though, because the wording I've seen on it more recently is almost it's more of he's going to be kind of holding in. Like he's going to be there, he's going to be doing his bit, but he's going to make it very clear that he wants a deal. Like he's on, which almost for a team I think could be worse if he's in the building and making noise about it. That's a distraction for everyone in such a limited off season where you just want football. Let's get it all. Let's just get all the basics down. Let's get the playbook down. You don't want one of like your main players just sat there like pay me.
Yeah,
like,
especially like it's kind of an etiquette in the NFL, I believe, that money's not really discussed. Like when someone gets paid around the team, there's always like, yes, well in man, like you got paid.
I think you heard it a little bit in this
happy
episode.
For you.
But,
and when Bosa gets paid and everyone's like, yes, like sick man, you got the bag. But in the NFL locker room, people don't discuss what they get paid. It doesn't matter. They're a brotherhood that are playing a game, and they're all there for a championship. So who knows? We'll wait and see how that plays out.
Yeah. But looking forward to episode 2, which comes out this week. It's exciting times. But now it's time for our season preview segment of today's episode. And as previously mentioned, this is the number 3 seed, the Kansas City Chiefs, who we've got pitted out at 13-3. Now, this could be a controversial position maybe for the Chiefs, with some thinking maybe they should be number 1, potentially. But I think the top 3 were very close for us anyway.
Yeah.
But I guess the question for the Chiefs for this season is, are they able to, and will they be able to, keep up last year's form?
I think you'd expect them to. I think with everything they've got there and with the core, I think has relatively well been kept together, especially in terms of the offense. And I think one interesting thing that I just read today that is a massive factor for the Chiefs always is Arrowhead and the atmosphere there. And they're one of the few teams that are currently planning to have fans from the beginning there.
20% capacity, I think?
Yeah, so it's not a lot, it's not a massive amount, but it's something. And I think it will make a massive difference, not even necessarily the noise, but if you're a player and you look up and there is someone in the stands recognising it and enjoying it, I think it gives you something more. So I think that's something to consider that is important for them as a team anyway. And especially this season is maybe more relevant than in other years. But I think they've got everything there that you expect them to be in the thick end of this season, to be heavily competing. And within the AFC, you're most likely kind of thinking Ravens, Chiefs. There'll be other teams involved, and it's who knows? Mahomes could end up out for a while with COVID, then someone else, and it throws the season on its head. But just going off this roster, they should be in the championship game, depending on seeding, or they should be facing the Ravens at some point. And I think the winner of that goes to the Super Bowl from the AFC.
Hell yeah!
I think the really exciting thing about this what Matt touched on about the Chiefs Ravens, and I think everyone thinks that if everything falls well and as we'd expect, we want to see the Chiefs and the Ravens in that AFC Championship game. Now, as to who would win, for me, it's effectively a coin flip because I think the Chiefs have got the better offense overall. They've got a more rounded offense.
Yeah.
Especially now that you add Clyde Edwards-Helaire in. I think last season, the Ravens were probably a bit more well-rounded. But with Clyde Edwards-Helaire in there now, you've got maybe the best offense in football.
Clyde Edwards-Helaire, when he comes in, the expectation is he's going to be electric from the beginning. And there's a lot of expectation on him. And I think it's an upgrade as long as he picks it up quickly. But I think sometimes, obviously, he's going to be more involved in the passing game. But I think it's sometimes easier for running backs to pick up an offense in an off-season. So I think, I think you're kind of getting towards it, Sam, that Edwards-Helaire should be an upgrade for the season.
Edwards-Helaire is definitely an upgrade there. And that was the only real question they had on that offense, I think, was the run game. So I think that they are undoubtedly going into the year, they've got to be expected to be probably the best offense in football, the most well-rounded offense. And then on the flip side, I think there are a number of, for me at least, there's a number of questions around their defense. Can their defense maintain the high level of play that they did towards the end of last year? Because for a number of years, the Chiefs' defense hasn't been great. And even at the start of last year, it was a leaky defense. And going into last year, everyone was like, yeah, we know the Chiefs' offense is going to be great, but the defense is leaky. So when you kind of contrast that with the Ravens, who've got this, yes, it's still a high-powered offense, but in my opinion, it's a lot more one-dimensional than the Chiefs' offense. But the Ravens' defense could very well be the best defense in the league. That is not outside the realms of possibility. They've got a number of just great players on that defense. So I think for me, it's a coin flip. Does the best offense going up against potentially the best defense? Does that kind of, will they be able to outscore each other? Will Mahomes make up for be that much better? And for me, it really is a coin flip. I think I would probably give the edge at this point to the Chiefs.
Yep, I would as well.
So where we've got them at 3, we're over 2, I think it's a real coin flip. Yeah. I think the Chiefs are the slightly better team, but it's one of those things where you get to the playoffs and it's going to be one of those, I think it could be one of those games that comes down to a play or a series, and one person comes and just has a monster play. Kelce has a monster catch, or Clyde Edwards-Helaire comes up with a clutch run, or Lamar Jackson pulls just something magical out. We're at that end of the table, really, aren't we? You've got the two best offenses in football, arguably the best defense on the Ravens, and they're just going to be going at it. And I, for one, cannot wait.
I think not to get as well too stuck in on just Ravens, Chiefs, but I think for me it's two different games, regular season to playoffs.
Yeah.
Mainly just because Lamar Jackson hasn't done it yet. He's lit the regular season on fire. But then you got to the playoffs and it was like, I don't know, maybe it was good defensive scheming, and I think it probably does lean that way. But there's going to be, this year, when they, as long as nothing goes massively wrong, get to the playoffs, there's so much more pressure on him for that. Whereas I think the Chiefs, they've been there, they've done it. People know they can do it. They're not going to question Mahomes. They're not going to question whether this team can do it. So I think if I think it's week 3 they meet,
Yep.
I think I put down the Ravens to win that, but I think you have to meet him in an AFC Championship game. I would take the Chiefs.
Yeah.
It'll massively depend on how Lamar Jackson's kind of worked on his throwing. Again, not saying that he can't throw the ball and he can't do that, but I mean, you have to expect some regression in terms of kind of percentages for completions, touchdowns, that kind of thing. But that Ravens team, with now a full season of knowing exactly how they're going to play with Lamar Jackson, you might expect. I would argue that it's probably a lot easier to scheme against Lamar Jackson than it is against Patrick Mahomes, just because Patrick Mahomes does have that kind of it factor about it, and he's done it for 2 seasons. Lamar Jackson's done it for 1, and I think Lamar Jackson's probably the second best quarterback in the league, but Mahomes is different level.
Keeping it on the Chiefs specifically in terms of keeping up last year's form, keeping it where they need to be. I think there's a lot of talk about, especially now this Mahomes deal, we touched on it earlier, and putting the pieces around him, keeping him as tight end. Oh, it's the next Patriots dynasty. And the one interesting point for me on that I'm not as... I think this is a great team, and they will be playing at the thick end of things for a long time. I just don't know if it necessarily is the same, because I think it's easier to keep a defensive-focused dynasty going than offensive, and I think this Chiefs currently is going... It's focused around that offense, which is going to be interesting for me. That I think they're a great team now, and I think they'll continue to be competitive. I don't think this is... And who knows, they might, over the next few drafts, sort that out and just go heavy on the defense. As Mahomes settles in and can kind of elevate players, because that's what Brady started to do, was he would elevate the offense around him.
But not for the first 10 years.
No, not. I'm saying, but at the point where you've got to make it a dynasty, because to really carry it on, I think it's going to be interesting to see. I think they're a great team, and for this season specifically, they'll be there when it matters. Yeah. I think I'm interested to see how they do in terms of becoming the next Patriots, as people are kind of calling it, and you hear a lot of talk about. Because I think it's naturally going to be a bit harder at points to keep that rolling when they are heavily... At the moment, it's the offense that's going to get them there.
Yeah. And just to touch on perhaps why we've got my number 3 rather than 1 or 2, I think a lot of that comes down to the schedule as well.
Yeah.
We sort of touched on it. There's a lot of tricky games, but the ones in particular that could be stumbling blocks, like we mentioned, the Ravens. They've got Texans week 1, albeit at home. But I think they did lose the Texans at home last season as well.
Very nearly had a mare in the playoffs to the Texans. If it wasn't for some Mahomes magic and some dodgy defense, then Watson could very well have walked out of that with a win.
Exactly, yeah. And then obviously Buccaneers later on in the season as well. Not a bad team at all. I think we can all agree. A lot of good players there. So that's another tricky one. The Saints as well. There's a few teams in that schedule who could prove to be perhaps a stumbling block for their, maybe not their season, but just their record in general. And that for me is why we've got them ranked a bit higher, or a bit lower, I should say, than the teams in 1 and 2. And we mentioned the Ravens. I do agree, probably are a better team than the Ravens as it stands. But when you take into consideration the schedule, I do believe the Ravens will have a better regular season.
Oh, definitely, yeah. I think so.
So I don't think you can argue with that at all. But yeah, just interesting that the schedule has that much of an impact on their season, really.
I mean, the Ravens playing in a terrible division, and for us to then be saying that the Ravens have an easier schedule, I think speaks volumes to how some of the games that the Chiefs have got to play.
Mm-hmm.
Exactly that. Right. Moving on to fantasy side of things, perhaps. There's a lot of players you could potentially
pick your pick
from here. Maybe we should just dial down into one player we sort of mentioned earlier, in Clyde Edwards-Helaire. Obviously, rookie coming out, and he's guaranteed that starting running back slot now that Damian Williams has decided to opt out for the season due to COVID. Yep. Where would we be looking to pick him up in a draft? What round or
first round?
First round.
I think once the top 3 or 4 big guys go off the board, once you've got Saquon, Zeke, and McCaffrey off the board, at that point there is a very real argument that Edwards-Helaire will fall into the next category of kind of Derrick Henry and Josh Jacobs and Chris and Kamara. That is his ceiling, and I think for realistically, if you want to draft him, you have to draft him with your first pick in the draft, because chances are he's not there in the second round. I think that's where you've got to take him.
I think, yeah, he's going to be going first round. He was already going high, and now that we know he's going to be in from day one, yeah, he's going to be going first round. He's going to be going early, and I think it's one of those ones because there's now the hype around him, and he's a name you're hearing a lot about. If you're playing in slightly more casual leagues, he's going to be, I think, elevated even within the first round, just because he suddenly becomes a name that people keep hearing. And for me, the only concern I have is there's already been a few coaches coming out and saying this is tough for rookies. Like, this is a tough offseason to come in. And I'm not doubting that Edwards-Helaire will be good. And I think, especially as you work through the season, he'll just get better and better. I think he really will come good. And late on in the season, no qualms with that. The only concern I have is just the early part, especially with no preseason games, although it's the same for everyone, whether I would prefer to take one of the guys just for this year that I've already seen when it's that first round pick, because that is, if you get that wrong, you're potentially, obviously there's a lot of draft left, but you're potentially putting yourself at a massive disadvantage straight away and almost push yourself away from the championship. You're starting to play off, I just want to get to the playoff sort of thing. Yeah. So I think I don't think I would be going out and drafting him this year. I do not have anything against anyone who wants to. I think that's just me maybe playing it a bit safer, wanting to kind of see how he adjusts, because it wouldn't be the first time you have a player not live up to expectation in the rookie season. But then again, it all seems like everything's aligned very well for him. Mahomes wanted him there, and I feel like Mahomes is going to make him work. He's going to give him the work, which is what you want. Yeah. It's just going to be interesting to see how he adjusts, and it's just a bold pick, I think, and it could come out and you look great, but it also could be like he was maybe more of warranted a second rounder. It's hard to tell. Yeah.
The thing I like about Edwards-Helaire is the fact that he's just the clear-cut guy there. I think even in with Kamara, he's going to get a lot of. He'll get his 81 targets that he gets every year, and he will get a decent number of carries. But Latavius Murray has a spot in that offense. So there are questions there. I'm not a big Derrick Henry guy for fantasy, just because I think Derrick Henry's a very one-dimensional back. You don't get the kind of especially in half-point PPR or even full PPR, I don't like to go near Derrick Henry. Josh Jacobs, I think for where you're taking him after those top three, yes, he's a bit of a swing and he's probably a bit kind of hopeful, but I think all the carries are going to be there. And as a running back, as a rookie, running backs worry me a hell of a lot less, because when you've got running backs that get taken high, it's quite easy for a college running back to come in and adjust to the running aspect of the game. Where you will probably see him struggle is receiving out the backfield. So I would look to see that his carries will be there from day one, and as the season goes on, his value will just get bigger and bigger as he works his way into the passing offense, which I think by the end of the season, I think you could have a weekly top 3 back. But I think his floor, week to week, is probably still a top 12 running back, because he's the main guy on one of the best offenses in the league. So I think his floor is very high, and his ceiling is potentially the running back 1.
Wow. That's a big claim.
I think the problem for me is for him to hit that, he needs to come in and contribute as a pass catcher from the beginning. And you said that that is going to be the hard part. I think, he should be a lock as a running back 1, barring any uncertainty, any sort of out of nowhere, injuries or having to sit out for COVID, whatever. He should be a running back 1 on this year, and I think I'd feel confident taking him to be that. It's just, I just think he's going to be that guy that sometimes is going around the 5th and 6th pick that he could completely warrant. I haven't seen anything yet, and that's the worrying thing. If you had a bit of, it was a normal off season and you knew he was coming in to be the guy, I don't think I'd have any qualms with it. It's just where it's all a little bit different this year. It's harder for rookies. I'd have a bit of concern on it, and I guess for my first round pick, I want to kind of make sure it's a swing and a hit, not a swing and a bit of a miss.
I would be considering.
I want a home run, not a double. I guess.
I would be considering for him from the 6th pick onwards. I think.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think.
Yeah, definitely. I think from that 6-7 spot onwards, as you get towards the turn, the other running backs you're talking about there, sort of potentially Josh Jacobs is. I think should be around there.
Yeah, agree.
That's for me is a very tough decision to make. It's just you've seen a bit of Josh Jacobs, so I might lean that way. But Edwards-Helaire, I think, could outscore him on the season if he settles in. It's going to be be a good one to follow, I think.
Yeah, it definitely is. There's definitely risk attached and potential to get burned. But of all the running backs where there's potential to get burned, it's probably the least burning, I would say. So
I think not even a burn.
It's potential reach, but not really. There is risk, is what I'm trying to say, basically, but very minor. Right, Kelce, Mahomes, obviously number one for each of their position, right? Anything you'd like to add on those two for fantasy? Nope. Perfect.
Actually, one thing on Mahomes.
Oh, good job.
Don't take him before the 3rd. People are stupid and take him in the 1st or 2nd in some mocks. If you're gonna take, don't do that. He's not that valuable.
In some home leagues, you will see that in recent years, as kind of taking a late round quarterback and getting the late round value, as that's got more popular, don't be the guy who's chickening out of taking him. If he falls to you at the back of the 3rd and you've got a decent running back and a decent receiver and you can get... Don't be shy to be the one who reaches and grabs him in the 3rd or the 4th, because otherwise someone will take him in the 5th and it will be like, I got Mahomes, it's such a steal. Don't take him too early, but don't try and avoid being that guy who drafted a quarterback in the 3rd round.
It sounds like you're trying to cover your back from our dynasty draft. I believe it was at the start of the 3rd you picked him up there. So
it was.
Well, my dynasty quarterback's just been signed to 12 years he's under contract for, so I'm pretty happy.
Shame about the rest of the roster, but we'll move on.
Yeah,
I think Kelce as well. If you're taking one of the early tight ends, him or Kittle, no issues there as well. As again, don't get carried away. I think it's similar. You're looking around the end of the 3rd, 4th, fine.
Yeah.
Don't be going tight end in like the 2nd.
It's not worth it.
Don't be that guy.
It's not worth it, definitely. And, there's definitely other guys out there. If you don't get Kelce or Kittle, Hayden Hurst. Never want to put in the hat once again. Okay, wide receivers then. Now this
don't draft Tyreek Hill. Don't do it.
Wow.
Don't draft him.
To the question out of my mouth.
Don't draft him. I think you will be, with Tyreek Hill, the number 1 receiver on this team. Similar to San Francisco, the number 1 option for the safe kind of targets is Kelce. Tyreek Hill will finish the year probably as a wide receiver 1 on the season. Can almost guarantee you that the way in which he picks you up those points will leave you feeling like he wasn't a wide receiver 1. So what I'm saying there is he will have weeks where he goes absolutely insane and he will win you a week. And then he might have 2 or 3 on the trot where he kind of puts up a dud. And then he'll have 2 insane weeks. Now that's great, but from your wide receiver 1 and from where you're drafting him, I kind of want a bit more consistency, because it's all very well and good winning 4 weeks just purely off the back of him. But if I lose 5 weeks where he's put up duds and I miss the playoffs, I would rather have the guy who's just consistently giving me the points to get those wins. So I think there's a lot of people that would draft him, and there's the very high potential, because he is so kind of hot and cold, that on the end of the season, you'll look back and go, well, hang on, he was a wide receiver 1. Similar to Keenan Allen, the way he does it, you can get really burnt. So personally, I would avoid drafting him.
I was about to come back and say, this sounds exactly like the conversation we had at the weekend involving Keenan Allen. I think the thing is, for Tyreek Hill, he's better than Keenan Allen in fantasy. He's not going to burn you as much. I think he is good enough that if you're drafting, I wouldn't be taking him 1st round personally.
Oh no!
But some will. If you get a couple running back receivers going at the back end of it, he is one of those names that could follow on, or even be one of them. It's not unheard of. But I think if you're drafting anywhere near the turn, sort of in the last 3 picks, let's say in a 12-team league, and you get obviously your running back on the way past and on the way back, I don't have personally. I'd be happy taking him, and I think he's not as hit or miss. I think of the guys who is going to absolutely just blow out a week and win it for you, he is one of the more consistent options generally. Obviously, there is weeks where he comes in lower. You've got some players like Michael Thomas, who normally is the wide receiver one off the board, who is relatively consistent. He's not that. But I like Tyreek Hill in fantasy, and I think anytime it's a guy that will still be normally a good receiver on a week, not mind-blowing, but good, when he has that potential to be mind-blowing and regularly. Like, if you were going to say every week, almost, blindly, you've got to take a 10 and put it on a receiver who's going to go off, Tyreek Hill's probably going to be your name 9 times out of 10 when you've got Mahomes throwing him the ball. So I personally, we're going to differ on this. We're not going to agree on it. I'm taking Mahomes at his ADP at the back end around that turn for me personally.
Yeah, I'm taking. It's just the ADP for me. Like if you're thinking about him in the second round, I don't like the idea of my second round pick losing me weeks. Which I think Tyreek Hill is the kind of player who will potentially lose you a couple of weeks, and I don't want that from my second round pick. I'm happy I'm happy with that. If I can pick him up in the 3rd or 4th round,
you won't.
Then yeah, of course. Yeah, no, exactly. But I'm happy with a 3rd round pick when I've got 2 other solid guys. Maybe I've already got a wide receiver, and I'm happy with a 3rd round pick who I know is going to lose me a week or 2. But in the 1st or 2nd, I just don't want any part of that because I know there's going to be guys on the board that are much more consistently reliable.
Yeah, that's fair enough. I think another name as well out of that wide receiver core is Cole Hardman. Just to keep an eye on if he hasn't, if he's slipping a little bit, and you're sort of getting, if you've gone running back heavy early on, a piece of this offense who's shown he's got breakaway capabilities. You're not going to probably have him locked in as a wide receiver 1 or 2 on your roster. He's going to be more of someone you pull in as a flex, I think, for the right weeks, but could also leave in one of your flex spots quite consistently, depending on how he develops this year. He's got the potential to, like, the same as Tyreek Hill, take one for 80 yards, grab the touchdown, maybe even put up 2 of them in a game, and suddenly that's going to put you in a very nice spot for your week. So I think he's a name to keep an eye on. Just see where he's floating around in your drafts, and if you think what could do with a receiver, and he's there, he's a very high upside option for you. But that's more where, yes, you could get burnt off him, but you're not going to be putting the capital in him to worry. That's you bring him in as a flex to win the week.
Yeah.
Exactly.
What about Sammy Watkins then?
Not for me.
He's a tricky one. He's a tricky one because he's got all the talent in the world and he could go off, but he will suffer very much from similar to McCole Hardman in the sense that it's a stacked offense. There's only going to be so many targets to go around, even if they come out and throw the ball 650 times in a season, however many times they're going to want to throw it. There's only so many mouths to feed, and yes, there will probably be 1 week this year that Sammy Watkins absolutely goes off. Kind of like, I think it was the week 1 last year, he went off, he blew up, went for 200 yards and 2 touchdowns. He won you a week. But at that point, you're throwing a dart at the board. So if you want to carry him on your roster, I'm completely fine with that, and you want to take a swing at him in the flex, but you're guessing at that point.
Yeah, I guess it's a similar story for most of these wide receivers then, right?
Yeah.
I don't think there's no one out of those 3 names you're taking. I think even Watkins is a stretch for me. I think he's probably someone that's on his way out, talking long term, of Kansas, that I think is going to get to a point where they don't need to keep him around because they've got other options. So I think that's why I'd rather go with Hardman, because I think that's more of a long term option for them.
Yeah, definitely. What about any kickers from this team? This is my new trend is to try and bring up kickers.
Had to mention a kicker.
Obviously, Harrison Butker listed on the roster.
I don't think that. I mean, other than kicking extra points and a shed ton of kickoffs, I don't think they're going to be kicking many field goals. So,
yeah, I agree. I'm just happy we brought up kickers again. That's the main thing we brought up. So we
for the brand.
So unless there's any other players on this team you want to mention for fantasy relevance or just in general, then I believe, Matt, it is time for your fantasy quickfire segment.
It is. And I think it's quite a relevant one coming off the sort of discussions we've been having there about first round, what your options are, some of the names that we've been bringing up. So what we're doing this week is we're in a half-point PPR league. It's a 12-man redraft league, so quite a standard league you're going to be playing in.
Yeah.
We're all on the clock, and we're all back-to-back. It's Sam at 6, James at 7, me at 8. Currently, picks 1 to 5. We've had, obviously, CMC's gone number 1. And followed off from him, we've had Barkley, Zeke, Kamara, and Henry. Sam, you're on the clock. Go. What are you doing?
Really good one.
Because you've just mentioned quite a lot about how much you like Edwards-Helaire.
Yeah, so I'm sat at 6, which obviously I'm 12 PPR, half PPR, so I'm sat right in the middle. Mm-hmm. So if I want a receiver, I've got to pick. If I'm going receiver first, and I want to go receiver heavy, I've got to pick now because one of the top guys is not going to be there probably when I get back. The top guys at running back are probably also already gone. So I'm not going to get, unless I take a receiver now, I'm not going to get the best guy at a specific position. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to stick to my kind of tried and trusted, which is I'm just going to load up running backs. I'm going to take a running back. Mm-hmm. I know that much. And I am debating in my head which running back.
I can see you really want to bite at something here, but you
so
did say
I
number
am
6.
Actually, I'm going to go aggressive, and I'm going to take Clyde Edwards-Helaire.
I like it. You're back in what you went with. When you were saying it earlier, I was like, "Oh, it'll be interesting to see if he follows through." James, you're on the clock. You don't seem happy there.
Oh, yeah, that was going to be my guy. If I'm honest, there's so much potential there. Albeit a rookie, so we talked about the risk, and I believe you said it was a redraft league as well. So that risk is over one season. So a few questions there. Mm-hmm. Few names jumping out to me. Obviously Nick Chubb. Mention him probably every time the running back conversation comes up. Here's my guy. I believe he was like a top 5 or top 4 running back last season. Yeah. So he is clearly very talented. Issues might be around Kareem Hunt potentially stealing some of the the share. So there is that issue around Nick Chubb. You've also got Dalvin Cook, who did cross my mind.
Too many questions around him, probably.
He is in the building, at least.
He is in the building.
Not looking as bad at this point, but still a gamble.
If he's healthy and there was no holdout issues, then I'll be definitely taking him here, I think. But yeah, if he holds out, that's my first round pick gone for another year.
Again.
A growing trend. Although I still beat Sam last year, so
okay.
Reserve your judgment for now.
A lot of umming and ahhing and no picking here, James.
Clock's ticking down here, James.
Clock's ticking, so I'm just going through the motions in my head. Aaron Jones as well, I'd like to mention him.
Oh, yeah.
Another
AJ
one big
Dillon.
name last year.
Oh.
But yeah, got Sam, you're taking the cons from my head as well.
Getting in his head.
Yeah.
Yeah, there is that downside of potentially AJ Dillon and that random pickup in the second round, which we've touched on in our previous podcast. So I probably tend to stay away from that, and I probably tend to stay away from Dalvin Cook as well. And like Sam, I do want to go running back here as well. I didn't mention that previously. I like to stack up on running backs early on. So, as ever, it is Nick Chubb who I'll be picking at this point.
Oh, really?
He is my guy.
That's
top
bold.
4, top 5
That's
last
bold
year.
because I reckon I know who Matt's taking now, and Matt's probably quite happy.
I am very happy. I want to say, I think with what James has done, maybe it's up to you. Everyone's got their guy that they're going to take and probably take a little bit higher. And if you're confident on him, had him in the past, have done well for you.
Yep.
Fair enough if you want to do that. But maybe a little bit early. But for me, I'm sat now very happy because I'm at the 8th pick. We're in a 12-man league, so there's 6 picks until I get my pick back again. Looking at the running back position, which I do tend to prefer to go early, Dalvin Cook, Joe Mixon, Josh Jacobs, Miles Sanders, Kenyon Drake. There's names there, and I'm going to get someone who I think I can lock and load as my running back 1 for the year.
Which receiver is he taking?
I'm taking Michael Thomas for me.
Oh.
He is the wide receiver 1.
What's the phrase
so
from...
I'm definitely taking him there.
You chose poorly.
Oh, I don't know.
Yeah.
I think it's very hard to argue with when you're there at the 8th pick, especially not taking Michael Thomas. He's an elite fantasy and just in general wide receiver. There's obviously other names, DeAndre Hopkins. We touched on Tyreek Hill. He's another name that floats around at that spot. Who was your name, Sam? Who was it that you would be
D-Hop.
jumping towards there?
D-Hop. If I'm taking a receiver there, I would take D-Hop. However, I mean, if I was in that spot, I'd actually just take one of the running backs. I would probably take, at that point, Kenyon Drake. I know that's jump reaching, but I think I'd actually prefer Kenyon Drake over Josh Jacobs, and then I'd just take whichever of the next starting running back fell to me at my next spot, which would be the 14th pick or something like that, 16th pick.
Yeah, around
yeah.
Essentially, that felt quite similar to what I thought. I did have a feeling James and Nick Chubb. As I was writing it, I was like, I think I know that Nick Chubb will 100% not be there.
But the thing is, because it's a 7th pick, so like you say, there'll be another 7 or so picks for the next one, and he's not going to fall for my next pick. And I love Nick Chubb as a fantasy player, and my strategy does come down to running back, receiver.
Running back.
Yeah, exactly. So
I have had mock drafts before where I've gone 3 running backs to start.
Yeah.
With.
So, but I think ultimately what it comes down to is the strategy that someone will go for in the draft, and there's no right or wrong with that strategy per se.
There's a definite wrong.
Yeah, but you know what I mean, like running back, wide receiver at that point, give or take.
Yeah.
So,
yeah.
But
I mean, if you're taking a wide receiver at the 101, that's questionable.
Someone did that in our rookie dynasty
draft. Yeah.
Oh yeah, what was that all about?
I think it was what was it 2 picks in the top 3 and took 2 receivers.
Yeah.
Especially when we're talking like Clyde Edwards-Helaire.
Clyde Edwards-Helaire on the board
in this format. So unbelievable. But
could have traded those picks. He could have traded those picks away, picked up another 4 picks, and still got his 2 receivers.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
But it might work out for him. Reserve judgment. But sticking on the strategy front, which is what I just mentioned, it moves us very nicely into our head-to-head section.
Oh god.
Of today's episode.
Oh boy.
Previously, we have done sort of player stats, and we're going to move away from that today into a new format. Where,
hang on.
Yeah, this is a little curveball I'm going to throw you boys.
All that stats preparation just gone out the window.
I've been reading into the most unique stats on the most random players.
So we're going to stick on the fantasy front, and we're going to look at points per game in 2019 in a PPR format.
Okay.
That is the stat you need to look for, or you need to think about, is the points per game PPR. Mm-hmm. Now what I'm going to do is I've got a 9-round draft format, and each round I'm going to offer you 4 players.
Yeah.
And from those players you're going to build a roster.
Okay.
So the format's going to be, Sam will go first, then Matt, and then in round 2 it'll be Matt and Sam. So it's a snake draft.
Snake draft.
Yeah.
Yep.
And the structure of your team will be 1 quarterback, 3 wide receivers, 2 running backs, 1 tight end, 1 DST, that's defense and special team, and then 1 kicker.
You know what this reminds me of? Did you ever play in Madden when you do the you get to draft the thing and it offers you a set of players and you'll get the choice and you get I'm going to take that quarterback, and then 4 picks later there'll be an option to take a much better quarterback and you'll be sat there damn it.
See, it's very similar, apart from in each round it will only be 4 of the same position.
Right. Okay.
Right. So first round will be quarterback, then it'll be wide receiver, and then it'll be running back.
Okay.
And then we'll move on from there, and hopefully we'll get a feel for it as we move through. But I've got a very fancy spreadsheet here. So this is so much fun to make.
He loves a spreadsheet, doesn't he?
The other thing to note as well is minimum of 10 games played. That's not started, that's just played for each player. Because when I was looking at running back, there was a guy who was top 7 who had 1 game play for the Detroit Lions. His name evades me right now. And you won't be able to guess.
No, that won't be Bo Scarborough, will it?
I can't remember exactly, but it's a minor detail. So, to begin. Let me just, set the scene. The first round, we'll be going quarterback. Okay. And you have the choice of Ryan Fitzpatrick, Tom Brady, Danny Jones, or Gardner Minshew. Sam, you're on the clock. I need a snappy decision on this one, please.
Points per game.
Points per game in a PPR with a 10-game minimum. And this is last year's stats.
Last year's stats.
So last year, 2019. Sam? Got a choice of 4 there. Fitzpatrick, Brady,
I'm
Jones, Minshew. Don't
gonna-
overthink it.
I'm going to take Daniel Jones.
Daniel,
Cool.
yeah, that was
Happy.
the choice I thought you would go for. In fairness, so Daniel Jones for Sam. Matt, who are you taking?
Have a guess. Brady.
Oh,
Brady
it's
for
not
me.
Brady. To be fair, I pitted this very badly with your own quarterbacks.
Yeah, I was gonna say. Oh, no,
and
I
just
would-
for reference as well, they both have the same points per game last season, so
Yeah.
it's currently a tie.
I knew they were both above Fitzpatrick, so I was like, it's definitely them. Minshew was a bit of an offline, but I think
Bit of a wild card.
It's
yeah.
close.
Yeah.
It was very close. It's
Mm.
only 0.4 in it between Brady and Brady, Jones, and Fitzpatrick. So very close there.
yeah.
And
Nice.
Minshew, 0.1 below. So yeah.
So we
close,
both
close.
chose well.
Yeah, so we're all tied
Yes,
up.
you both
All
went for
tied up.
the right pick in that round.
Nice.
Right, moving on to the wide receiver class.
Okay.
So this is your wide receiver 1,
Mhm,
and you have the choice. And Matt, you're on the clock first, of course.
mhm.
You have the choice of DeAndre Hopkins, Devontae Adams, Cooper Kupp, or Mike Evans. Now, again, I've realised what I've done here, and I've
Ooh.
given you the
Oh, I know
Tampa
who I'm
player.
taking. I know who I'm taking. I
Yeah.
know who I'm taking. I
Oh,
know who I'm taking.
wait, give me the name. Run off the names one more time
So
again
it's
for me there. One thing.
DeAndre Hopkins,
Mhm.
Devontae Adams, Cooper Kupp, and Mike Evans.
Actually.
Regardless of being a Bucks fan or not, just purely on the front that he was injured for a while and there was a few weeks we put up some big numbers. I'm going Mike Evans with this one.
So remember, this is games. This is points per game, so it's an average.
Yeah, that's what I mean. He was out
Yeah.
for a while, but had some games we put up big numbers, so I'm going to go Evans, I think.
Makes sense.
I'm
Sam.
gonna take a similar one. This is very risky, but I get the feeling Cooper Kupp's the best pick here,
I think he's going to be up there, yeah.
and I'm gonna take Cooper Kupp.
I think
Interesting.
don't let us know the scores now from now until
Yeah,
the end. I think.
I'm not going to.
Yeah.
I'll read off
Otherwise
the
we'll be
who's
working
won
it
each
out.
round.
Cool.
Um,
Okay,
That was an interesting one. Right,
keep it tense.
Sam,
Yeah.
running back 1.
Okay.
So you've got a choice of Derek Henry,
Yeah.
Austin Eckler,
Yeah.
Ezekiel Elliott,
Yeah.
or Aaron Jones.
I'm gonna
Which
take
one?
Aaron Jones.
Aaron Jones, no question. Wow, okay.
High touchdown scores last year.
I'm
A
going to
lot of
take Zeke.
touchdowns.
Matt
Going
is
with
going
Zeke.
for Zeke. Let me put that into my fancy little spreadsheet. Right, next round. Wide receiver 2 is what we're going for here. Obviously, Matt, you're on the clock first.
Mm-hmm.
And again, we have a choice of 4. Those 4 are Tyler Boyd, Stephon Diggs, Deebo Samuel, or Terry McLaurin.
Oh.
Who are we
Oh.
taking?
Oh, that's a
Right, I'll mix
tricky
this
one.
Right
Mate,
on mix.
Okay, throw them to me again so I can think for as I'm hearing them. I feel like you've got to be able to compare the first names now to the last ones. That's always good to hear.
So this, I'm reading backwards now, just to throw you off.
Okay.
No, so we've got Tyler Boyd,
Uh-huh.
Stephon Diggs,
Mm-hmm.
Deebo Samuel, and Terry McLaurin.
I'm going to go with Deebo Samuel.
Deebo
Yeah.
Samuel.
Okay.
Sam, who are you going for?
It's a tough one.
It is
really
I'm
thinking
gonna take Tyler Boyd.
Tyler Boyd, okay.
I think that's a smart move.
That was the two
Yeah.
names I was between.
It's tricky because Terry McLaurin,
Yeah, he's the wild
so
card.
hot or cold. It's like boom bust, boom bust. Who's throwing the ball to him?
I'll tell you this much: he wasn't the worst one out of the 4 for points per game last season. So,
Yeah.
and one of you did pick the worst player out of that 4. So.
Oh,
Damn it.
God.
Didn't
Oh, no.
Who knows who that could be?
Oh,
Right.
God.
We'll move on to the running back 2. And again, Sam, you'll start this one.
Yeah,
So your choices are Leonard Fournette,
yeah,
Chris Carson,
yeah.
Nick Chubb,
Hey.
Yeah.
or Mark Ingram, who I should be doing that for as well as a
Yeah,
Ravens
I was
fan,
gonna
but,
say.
that's a bit
Oh,
controversial.
Oh.
I'm gonna take.
Both my
I'm gonna
guy,
take.
both.
I'm gonna take Nick Chubb because he had 1,500 of rushing yards or something. So yeah, I'll
Sam,
take Nick
running
Chubb.
back 2,
Mm,
Nick Chubb.
Nick Chubb's gone. Who are the other
really
names again?
interesting. Right, so you've got
Okay.
Leonard Fournette, Chris
Yep.
Carson, Nick Chubb, and Mark Ingram II.
You don't have Nick Chubb.
Yeah, Chubb's off the board. Oh,
Without
this
Chubb,
is
yeah.
Oh, that's a downturn. I feel like.
It's so interesting.
Maybe not because it's points per game though, isn't it? So you've got to think of it
Points
that
per
way.
game, PPR as well. Remember that. Man, it's
Ooh, this is really tough.
I love the way you slide in the PPR after I've taken Nick Chubb.
I said
Yeah.
PPR at the very start, mate. That's all I'm saying. Gotta listen up.
I don't know. Part of me wants to go Fournette, but I just across the board, I'm like, he had a down year. But I'm gonna go. I'll run with Fournette.
Fournette.
That could cost me. I get
Very,
the feeling. I
very
think that's.
Interesting.
I think that might cost me at that.
I think he was quietly an okay.
Yeah,
running back.
if it wasn't PPR, I'd be a bit more hesitant. But I think he did get a bit of use there. We'll see. We'll see. Who knows?
Right. So Matt, it's back to you
Mm-hmm.
with the wide receiver 3. This is a painful one. So you got Danny Amendola,
If you say Brashard Perriman,
Juju Smith-Schuster, Kenny Stills,
Kenny Bills,
Brashard Perriman.
Well, no, not Perriman, because he only did it for a few games at the end of the year. I think. Oh,
So this is an interesting one.
Tough.
This
This is
is
real tough. This one.
It's close. This one.
Yeah. What was the second name again? Sorry.
Juju Smith-Schuster.
Right.
So that is a mouthful. I mean, you try to say.
Oh, I'll go Stills. I think there.
Kenny Stills.
Yeah, I think he had one good week. He was quite.
I feel like he's
Yeah,
quiet though. He's just quietly.
I had him.
along.
I had him on my roster last year, and there was a lot of weeks that he was very okay. He was like the kind of guy who'd always bring in like 50 yards off a couple receptions. Points per game.
Points per game. PPR.
PPR. Yeah.
10 game minimum, obviously.
10 game minimum.
You got Danny Amendola, Juju Smith-Schuster. You had Kenny Stills no longer there.
I'm gonna take Danny Amendola.
Yeah, I was just thinking. The second you said PPR again, there, I was starting to think, hang on, that's Amendola territory. That.
I'll take Amendola. Let's see how.
Gonna blow your mind
did.
here. Rashard Perriman was the best pick out of the 4.
Yeah, did he only play 10? Did he have like?
He was elected at the end of the year.
14
Oh yeah,
games.
He played 14. Yeah.
So he had 9.9 points per game.
Wow.
So I was testing to see whether you
I didn't want to risk
knew
it.
about that guy.
Like I'd still say I'd still be taking him this year, but in that group, I was surprised.
Yeah, in that group I was surprised as well to see him there, but yeah, when it comes
fair.
to our fancy listener league, stay
So-
away. I'd say.
So do I have the
Sam,
next pick?
Sam,
Yes,
it's you
I
up
do.
next.
Tight ends.
So now it's down to the tight ends.
Yes.
So on the board, you've got Jason Witten, Mike Gesicki, Dallas Goedert,
Okay.
Greg Olsen.
Well,
It's a right old mix. in there.
Olsen. How much did he play? He
had 14 games played. I can list off the whole games played. for
I
them if you
am
want.
going to kind of play safe,
Yeah.
and I'm going to say Dallas Goedert.
Damn it.
I'm going to take Dallas Goedert.
Interesting pick. Interesting.
Oh. I was the way it's just strong. You get both the first running back picks and tight end pick each time.
Yeah.
Does that mean he's picked the best one each time?
True.
Probably not.
Because,
Right. I was thinking Goddard too. We had Greg Olsen,
So we've got
Just
and
Jason
Witten.
Witten.
So Jason Witten, Mike Gesicki, and Greg Olsen left.
Jason Witten did haul in a lot of balls though, for considering his age.
Yeah.
Tough.
I'm kind of between the two. Of like, it's two like very experienced. Will usually get targets, and then Gesicki's more of the. I'm gonna go Gesicki, but I feel like Witten is Witten probably is the better pick.
Bold.
Interesting.
Very bold.
I'll run a bit bold with it.
Very interesting. Right. Down to the final 2 picks. And we'll kick those off with the DST. So talking defense and special teams here. And Matt, you're on the board. On the clock, I should say. And on the board is the Buffalo Bills, the Indianapolis Colts, the Tennessee Titans, and the Seattle Seahawks. Who are we looking at here for DST?
DST. Was it Colts, Titans, Bills? Who's the last one? Seahawks.
Bills, Colts, Titans, Seahawks.
I'm gonna go Bills.
Bills, okay.
I quite like them as a
Interesting pick. I said it after every pick. I just realised
It's so hard getting out of picking off last season.
Yeah,
I just keep trying to think of
exactly.
this season is where my head's at when I'm doing any kind of draft. It's weird.
It's really testing what happened last year for you guys.
Yeah.
Right, Sam, on the clock, you've got the Colts, Titans, and Seahawks left to pick. Which of those three are you heading towards?
I kind of don't want to take. I'm split between the Colts and the Seahawks.
Okay.
I don't know why, but something's telling me that the Titans might not be the best shout. I don't know why, because usually they play quite low-scoring, boring games. But there's no... I'm going to take the Titans. I'm just going to go against what my brain's telling me, and I'm going to take the Titans.
That's kind of like Gesicki. I was like, my brain was saying Witten, but I thought I got a bit in this season. Like, yeah, Gesicki.
I think I should have taken the Seahawks, but I'm going to take the Titans.
I'll put it now. You should not have taken the Seahawks.
No,
They
good.
were the worst
Sweet.
of the four.
Yeah.
Good choice. Right, final pick, and it's probably my favourite round. Kickers.
I don't even track kickers scoring nowadays.
So this is going to be pretty exciting.
Oh,
Right,
God.
four
I
on
know
the
what I'm
boards.
taking.
Start with Sam, Greg Zuerlein, Chris Boswell, Zane Gonzalez, and Josh Lambo. So Zuerlein of the Rams, Boswell of the Steelers, Gonzalez of the Cardinals, and Lambo of the Jaguars.
Jags.
It's an interesting bunch.
So I'm looking
Very
for people
tight-knit
that
group.
will have... How did Greg...
This is the hardest round to pick, I'd say, actually.
So I want decent offenses, but not offenses that were great at converting, or offenses that were very good. I'm going to go with Greg the Leg.
Greg Zuerlein,
Oh,
Yep.
LA Rams. Right, final pick of the draft.
Run me the other three again, because I was thinking
So,
Zuerlein.
Chris Boswell of the Steelers, Zane Gonzalez of the Cardinals, Josh Lambo of the Jaguars.
Oh, I know who I should have taken now. It's just...
Hold that thought. I would ask you after who you thought you should have taken. But Matt,
I'm going to go Lambo,
Josh Lambo.
I think.
Okay.
I was between him and, I can't remember the guy's name, Steelers. But I'll go Lambo.
Yeah, I literally, as I said, as he said Boswell, I was like, hang on a sec. The Steelers' offense was inept. He would have been... The only points they were getting through kicks. Wasn't there a game they won because they kicked 18 points worth of field goals? I think there might have been.
Partly I forgot his name as well.
But it's
Boswell.
interesting. You say Boswell, he was the worst pick.
Oh,
Really?
So
Really?
good job I forgot that. Good job I blanked
So
his
there you
name when
go.
you said it again then.
Right, okay, here
Shows
we go.
how much I know.
Here we go. Okay.
I think I've
So I'll
thrown
run you through your teams, and I'm going to ask you who you think's won. So start with you, Sam.
Yeah.
Daniel Jones
Yep.
at quarterback.
Happy.
3 receivers are Cooper Kupp, Tyler Boyd, Danny Amendola.
Yep.
Running backs, Aaron Jones, Nick Chubb. Tight end,
Running
Dallas
back room.
Goddard. DST is the Titans, and kicker is Greg Zuerlein.
It's in the bag.
Yeah, it does sound decent.
And then Matt, quarterback, obviously Tom Brady.
What's left of him?
The 3 wide receivers, Mike Evans, Deebo
like
Samuel, Kenny Stills. 2 running backs, Ezekiel Elliott, Leonard Fournette. Again, have a good running back room.
Washed up.
Tight end, Mike Gesicki. DST Bills, kicker, Josh Lambo. Who do we think has won?
I mean, at least you've got a good
I think
defense.
I'll edge Sam on that, I reckon. Yeah, back. But, yeah.
I'm not.
There's just a couple of my picks. I could tell you're projecting that. That's when you.
I got flashy. I got a flashier team. I
just think there's just a couple of mine that I'm like, eh.
I like
That's
Aaron
more
Jones
what I've
for the
picked.
touchdowns.
Yeah.
So
Go on, put us out of misery.
Come on.
So, it's actually a tie. I don't know how this
What?
has happened, but it's actually a tie. And that is heartbreaking because there's so many small figures in this. So we're going to go to a small tie break, which this is going to be off the top of my
wait,
head.
hang on. What was the tie at? What was the score?
So 117.6 each.
What?
Points per game. That's a
100 points per game. That's a sum.
off
total sum.
of 10. Yeah.
Off of 9 picks there. So
Then again, if you can average that 10 games a season, you'd be
Yeah,
looking
I'll
at
take
right,
it.
exactly. Right, okay. So what we're going to do now is we're going to add another running back and one more quarterback as well.
Yep.
So
Okay.
we'll stick with the four we listed off, and we'll stick with the. I think I had 8 listed down here as well.
Okay.
So that is the 4 quarterbacks we had listed and the 8 quarterbacks we got listed.
Wait.
Actually, wait a minute.
Hang on. Wait, how are you doing this? So wait, the 4 originals. So we already know
4
to
original
decide.
quarterbacks. Yep. So you have 2 to choose from there. And then
Okay. All right.
actually, I'll keep it down just to 4
Wait,
quarterbacks
Okay. Yeah.
to make it fair. So, Sam, you'll go first on the quarterback front.
Yep. Okay.
And then Matt, you'll
Okay.
go first on the running back front.
Mm-hmm.
And then hopefully after
Okay.
this, we won't have a tie. Because otherwise, I'm all out of ideas, and we'll just have to.
At that point, it's 2-0 and a
yeah,
1.
exactly. But we don't want that. We don't want
Maybe
to tie
maybe
you.
a point for James. How about that?
Yeah, exactly. For doing another tricky
For trying.
quiz.
Yeah. Just to keep
Turn
Sam
it
on
up.
0, mate.
Right. Okay. So, quarterbacks then. Sam.
Yep.
Sticking to
me.
the 4 we had. So,
Yep.
left on the board is Ryan Fitzpatrick, Gardner
Yep.
Minshew. Which?
Okay. So I'll take Ryan Fitzpatrick.
So Sam is
Mhm.
taking Ryan Fitzpatrick.
It's a tough decision, but I guess I'll go with Minshew there.
Yep.
There's only one left.
Coin flip.
Nice to have a pick.
Right. Okay. We're going back to the running backs here.
Mm.
Okay. So, left on the board is Derrick Henry and Austin Eckler.
Oh, come on.
And you know what? If one of you gets this wrong, it's still a tie. So, this could be interesting.
What? So this is all on whoever I. This is on essentially. I've got
This
to
is-
pick.
This is basically what do you think's more valuable? A running back who's like a 3-down back who gets a bit of receiving work but isn't like completely 100% the guy, or whatever it is that Derrick Henry is, who's just a animal in his own right.
So,
PPR is the interesting part of this for me.
PPR. So,
Yeah.
we've got Derrick Henry and Austin Eckler to fill up your roster and add a 3rd running back to your team. It's an interesting pick. And hopefully when we do this in the future, there won't be a tie because
Yeah, I don't know
chances
how
that
we've
happen
managed
is
that.
so slim of that happening.
And the fact if I get the wrong, if I get this the wrong way
I
around.
won't say if you get it wrong or right.
Oh,
what happens?
Okay.
But at that point, it's
We fight.
we fight to the death.
I'm just gonna. I don't know. I'm just a fan of him, so I'm just gonna go with it. And I feel like Sam would probably want to take Eckler, but I'm gonna take Henry. I think
Derrick
for me.
Henry.
Yeah.
Young
But I think it's probably giving it to Sam. I get the feeling. I think
I
So
he was
think
a high finisher.
I think Derrick Henry was the highest scoring back on the season and probably would have had a much
points
more
per
consistent
game.
points per game.
Mm.
So I would have gone with that as well. So obviously I've got Austin Eckler. So let us know.
Right. The winner is we have a winner,
That's good at least.
So Matt's won.
and the winner is Matt. Once again, Matt takes it 3-0.
3-0.
It was Gardner Minshew. It was higher scoring than Fitzpatrick, and obviously Derrick Henry as well was higher scoring than.
You realise he told us earlier with the quarterback.
Yes, I know, but I couldn't remember.
Well, I forgot about that as well, so I'm glad.
I was about
listening.
to say, and then I was like, Sam tends to not listen unless he's the one speaking. So
Well, at least
I feel
Sam
quite
went first in
comfortable
that
with
one
this.
then.
Yeah.
So congratulations, Matt. You have won this week's round of head to head.
Should we swap this? Should Sam host this maybe? Because
No, I'll come back. I'll come back.
Old Yips had it again, but
Yeah.
this was the closest one thus far. A tie, have to go to tie breaks. Sam, you've obviously got something there. Just
It's not enough.
just need to pull out the bag next week, mate. That's all I'll say.
Yeah.
But
Do you know what the worst thing is? I looked this up because you sort of gave us a rough mention of what you might be doing. I didn't look up PPR. I looked up standard and half. No, and then when the second you said PPR, then I was like, I was like, that's the
I
one
should
bit
have
I
mentioned
didn't
this in
do.
the
I didn't look up
pre-show,
anything.
but-
I didn't look up anything. I just know about football.
Well, I didn't look up anything of use, but
So he didn't go with PPR, so there's that argument thrown out.
the only helpful one was the quarterback bit. But
Yeah.
Yeah, I did give you a hit on that one, but I completely forgot about that because I was thrown off by the tiebreak situation. But anyway, unfortunately, that is all we've got time for today's episode. So, as ever, be sure to head over to YouTube, go like, comment, and subscribe, and also check us out on Instagram. Otherwise, Sam, Instagram and Twitter. We are
Down.
at the Brit Iron. Sam,
There
one
it
day
is.
you'll get this right, mate. One day That's it. Oh, almost.
I legitimately have no idea. So
But yeah, check us out on all our socials listed here. We're at the Brit Iron for Twitter and Instagram. So go check us out. Go start the conversation. Have a little chat with us on there. We're posting daily at this point, so a lot of good content going on there. But for now, thank you for listening, and we'll see you next time.
see ya.